What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another interview. I'm joined with the Dark Order's Alex Reynolds, I believe, number three.
Yep, number three.
Yeah, buzzing.
Lucky number three.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute honour to have you on the channel.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I don't, like, I do get a lot of requests for interviews, and I guess I had a soft spot because you said you were a journalist student.
Yeah,
And I just graduated college. It's like, oh man, like I know how hard school is. Like, let's do it.
Well, I thank you for coming on. Before we start, before asking any questions, rather, I would like to, relay the story of how I discovered the Beaver Boys. So, I'm over in Scotland,
Okay.
lived in Ireland, so big in that sort of UK Irish wrestling scene. And my favourite team at the time was Aussie Open, and they were over in WrestleMania in New York
Oh,
for WrestleMania weekend, and they were all, hey, if you buy IWTV, you get a free week, and the first episode of Uncharted Territories on, and it was you and Silver had an open challenge, and they came out, and I was like, oh, class, these guys are quite good. Aussie
yeah.
Open are wrestling them, and then you won, and I was really tired, and just in my mind, I was like, they're really good, but Aussie Open lost. And I was just the most conflicted. But I mean, from then on, I started following you guys because I was like, that match was great. I mean, you guys are great now. You're in All Elite Wrestling. So obviously, the story's been told a lot that you guys were just sort of ferried around as local talent, and you were local talent at
Yeah,
in like 7 different cities. What was that like? Just
pretty much.
being brought around for, it kind of became a bit of a running joke, and obviously it led into this. But what was that like at the start?
It was very exciting. Like the first night, it was like the third episode of Dynamite in Philly. And it was just like, hey, this is just a one-off, like this is all we have. And all right, cool. And then it's like, hey, Santana and Ortiz versus, local talent. You guys got 90 seconds. And we were like, once we found out we were wrestling Santana and Ortiz, we're like, oh man, we've had like great matches with them. This is going to be great. And then it's like 90 seconds. Whew. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
And like everybody was like apologizing, like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like we only had this amount of time. We're like, dude, we don't care. Like we're just on TV. Like this is what we were brought in for. Like, so I think because we had a good attitude about it, and it's like, oh, maybe, we'll bring you guys back and you guys will just keep getting beat. And we're like, yeah, sure. Love to come back,
Yeah, exactly.
because after that first time we were there, we had realized like this is where we want to be. Just the atmosphere. A lot of our friends were there. It was just like, man, this is like, we need to make this work. So once they said, oh yeah, we'll bring you back, we're like, okay. And then all of a sudden they go, oh yeah, you're gonna come to West Virginia. And I'm like trying to figure out, man, West Virginia from New York, like that's a pretty long drive. And they're like, oh, we'll get you guys plane tickets. Oh, okay. Like, that's great. And then it was just like, every time we'd come, they'd give us a little bit more information and like, hey, maybe, with the Dark Order, like, and I remember one day, Matt Jackson was telling us, he's like, yeah, we'll probably need you next week and the week after and the week after. We're probably going to need you guys for a while. We're like, all right, let's do it. It was very, very strange because it's like, we weren't under any type of contract. And they're like, hey, you're going to film this promo in a hotel room where you see this Dark Order ad on TV. And it's like, I'm filming a promo, a vignette for TV. And like, we're not like anything. We were just getting beat up on TV. Like,
Yeah.
So it was very
I
like
actually like
exciting,
it
but like, you don't know what's going to happen week to week.
I think like the way you guys got brought into the Dark Order, because the Dark Order sort of went through in the early days anyway, went through its sort of ups and downs. I think really finding its feet in the no fans era of Dynamite. But the way that they brought you guys in with like the ads and stuff, I was watching it and I was just like glued to my seat. I was like, this is amazing. And then it kind of went up and down a little bit, and then obviously Brody Lee came and just set it straight. But I mean, you mentioned there that pretty much after one show, you guys knew you wanted to be in AEW, and I think like even as a fan, it comes across to me I know absolutely nothing about the wrestling business. I just know I like watching wrestling. But
Right.
but it's 100% if you told me I can only watch one show every week, it's Dynamite. There's just
Yeah.
something so good about it, and I guess that also relays into the backstage shenanigans with being the Elite.
Of course.
Obviously, the Dark Order bits are just some of the most outrageous things ever.
Yeah.
And what's it like being there? Because obviously you and Silver are in a team. But what's it like being there? Because I mean, you say some incredible stuff, really really funny stuff. But then there's also just you and Silver going back and forth, and he just I don't know what's going on in his head, but he just manages to like find that last rung that no one can come back from.
Oh yeah.
So what's that like being in there? Just like
it's really like as weird as it sounds, like that's mine and John's relationship. Like this is a lot of the stuff we've done on BTE is a lot of like jokes we've done and like how we act just when we're together. I've known John since he was 14. Like we both started training at the same time pretty much. So we've been doing this, we've been together for a long time. So like I know kind of what to say to set him off and how he knows how to, we just play off each other very well, with him being the outrageous one and me kind of being the straight man. But yeah, a lot of it is just, oh, hey John, this joke we say, yeah, let's just throw this in here. Like it's really mostly just to make ourselves laugh, what we find funny. And thankfully, a lot of people have found it funny. So that helps.
I think even though it's 99% of the time it's a Silver thing that gets clipped onto Twitter. I think my favorite Dark Order moment in BTE is it was when you were off for a while and you FaceTimed in the clubhouse and John was asking why you were gone, and without missing a beat you were like, "Oh, I'm back home circumcising my dad," and you just see in Silver's face that he had no clue it was coming, and I think about that so. And then
there's not much planning with these. We'll have like a loose outline. And then there's so many times that someone, usually John, will say something and it just, that's why like I'd say 90% of the bits you'll see me just start to hold back laughter because I just wasn't expecting something. And there have been like so many times when we're filming and I get like headaches and like my abs hurt just from laughing so much. Yeah, it's truly one of my favorite things that we've done. And I think we've all grown closer, which I think is why it comes across on BT and television. Like when the entire group is together, like there's a real bond there.
Yeah. As just to stay on BT for one more question.
Sure.
What's out of all of the skits and the bits, what's the one that sticks in your mind the most? Because for me, it's the bench press with John milking 10, and then Anna just bench presses 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Or Brody flashing you on FaceTime as well.
Yeah, that was another thing that I wasn't expecting. My wife's in the next room and she just hears like Brody screaming, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "This is just a little taste, sweetie." I'd have to say I'll give you my top three because it's really hard to pick just one.
Okay.
Hangman, the Handsome Cowboy, our Christmas musical that we did. Mostly because I wrote most of the songs myself. Cowboy Day that we did with Hangman. That was a good one.
Cowboy Day was amazing.
And then there was one we did kind of early on with Brody where like we're sitting around a table and he comes in and he's like, he points at like Stu 5 and 10 and he's like, some of you guys are doing great. And then some of you guys, and he looks at me, Silver and Uno, are fuck, and he just starts yelling at us. Uno pulls out the Jaguar helmet and Brody throws the papers. It was that I just remember we filmed like 2 back to back, and I just remember like being in so much pain from laughing so much.
Yeah, I mean, you watch them and you just I don't even know how to describe it. Like I watch them and like I'll be like talking to my girlfriend, and I'll just like make a reference to like one dumb shitty throwaway line from a Dark Order BT bit, and she's like, what the fuck are you on about? And I'm like, just leave it. I'm like, I know it's funny, and it's making me laugh, so that's all that really matters here.
Yeah, my wife watches it. She's like, "This is your job, huh?" It's like, "Yep, sure is."
Obviously, speaking of Brody, one of the most tragic things to happen in wrestling for a long time. But in the wake, you guys have like quite seamlessly transitioned the characters. Was obviously, you don't need to go into a lot of depth, but was there much of a change in plans long term for like the booking of the Dark Order in the wake of that, or?
Yeah, because there was a while where like we just didn't know what was going to happen, and then it was just kind of like a natural progression, and it's like,
because I think that was one of my favorite things.
Obviously,
sorry, go.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think one of my favorite things about the Dark Order, sort of like through the summer months last year, was like you guys would be doing all that stuff on being the Elite, and then like you and Silver would be wrestling, and it'd be big cheers, big reactions. But then right at the end, like when you all be like lined up on the stage, or like Brody would do something, and Brody would bring it right back to like where you guys were. So you guys would all be being goofy and like being silly, and then Brody would come in and just be the biggest bastard in the room and take everyone's head off, and then it sort of leveled the Dark Order back. And I mean, unbelievable TV, but
yeah, I always tried to liken that to like around the time we started with BT, and like figuring out the dynamic with Brody. I was telling John, like, I kind of want to be like the hyenas from the Lion King, where like Brody is Scar and he's like the boss, and like, but we're just these goofy idiots. But then when it comes time for action, like we're serious. We're not just goofy wrestlers, doing like silly little comedy wrestling. Like we're gonna just fucking maul people. But personality-wise, yeah, we're a bunch of goofy idiots. So that was kind of the thing. And Brody was the perfect person to play like that super serious,
he was the perfect foil
leader. Yeah, which is why there'll never be like another like Exalted One or leader of the Dark Order. Like that role is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there was a big like, hey, what do we do with the Dark Order now? But I feel like one of our strengths as a group is making something out of nothing, where it was like, all right, like we have this new direction. Let's, then we started doing stuff with Hangman and, I think had like a nice little story there.
As you mentioned, like with the whole like reference to the hyenas and the Lion King, like there's something I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, the Dark Order now just goofy, goofy comedy all the time, like Ollie's jumping on Hangman's lawnmower, which I didn't realize was also an arc, because in one of his lower thirds one time it said saving money to buy a new lawnmower. But it's the fact that you guys can be doing all this stuff and promos and having a great time, and then I mean the match that comes to mind for me, it was the 8-man against was it an 8-man against like the Bucks and the Good Brothers, or like there's the visual of Silver squaring up to Gallows, and that's like that's genuinely one of my favorite AEW matches ever, and the transition from like goofy Dark Order to 4 of the best wrestlers in the world on that side of the ring was seamless, and I think that's like a big part where you guys strength lie.
Yeah, we need that. It's all about balance. I think there's a lot of benefits to being like, hey, like we're these silly, goofy, almost like children. But then when the bell rings, like, no, when it's time to get serious, we're going to get serious, So we never wanted to, lean too heavy to one side or the other. We wanted, hey, when it's time to play, it's time to play. When it's time to, get things going, we're gonna take it to you.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously now Silver's out for a little bit with his shoulder, but I think the big strength, like I say as well, with the Dark Order is obviously you and Silver have been a team for a long time, but it's not weird if one week the graphic is Reynolds and 10 or Silver and Cabana. Like, what's that like?
Yeah.
You know, from a wrestling standpoint.
You know, we've spent this past like year in Jacksonville, and we've spent a lot of time together as a group, and you know, watching each other's matches. So I know if it's like me and Colt, I know the things he does and his timing on things, and I'm like, okay, I can mesh really well with him. And then if it's me and Five, it's like, oh, okay, he's, you know, quick and very athletic, so let's figure out a way to balance this out. I feel like a lot of us, like, you can put any 6-man, 8-man tag team, like, and we'll have chemistry with each other, you know.
Yeah.
And that just comes from spending a lot of time together and knowing each other's strengths, knowing each other's weaknesses.
Yeah, definitely. I saw when Uno and Stu were on Unrestricted that 6 is left open for Sean Waltman if he ever wants to join.
Yeah. Yes.
Are there any other numbers you've got reserved for any dream entrants, or just any dream entrants in general? They don't need to be wrestlers, because I would love to see Jackie Chan in the Dark Order. That's just my personal. Because Jackie Chan would be great in wrestling. I don't know why he's not done it yet.
Seriously, even like a little like guest spot, something.
Yeah, I think he'd be great.
Yeah. God, dream people in the Dark Order. I know we were trying to get Sting in the Dark Order for a while. I think Sting would look good with a little touch of purple in his makeup.
Yeah, definitely.
You know. So I don't know, but our relationship with Sting is weird. Sometimes we're friends. Sometimes he points at us with the bat. Tells us to back off. So. But at the end of the day, he's Sting. So
yeah, exactly. Oh man, I don't even know, because I mean, obviously Dynamite's tonight, and thank you so much for giving up your time on show day. But
no, absolutely.
It's just there's just something about AEW that, I mean, as you say, it's so nuts, because I think the best way to describe it is Eddie Kingston said it on Talk is Jericho, and he just said, he was like, it's like walking around the Chikara locker room, and then you look over and Chris Jericho's just sitting there.
So, it's a lot of us have to pinch ourselves.
I was going to say, like, what's that been like, you know, from guys like you and Silver, who, you know, worked on the indies and did a lot of good stuff in the indies, and then you're there with people you know, and then Sting's there, Jericho's there, Shaq was there one week.
Yeah. It's still like, it never, I'd say at least once a trip, somebody will just go, this is just wild. Like, you know, you're talking with, like, you know, Kingston and the Bucks and like guys you've known for years, and like it feels like you're still on the indies. It's that same kind of vibe and passion. And then you're just like, oh well, I had this talk with, you know, Dustin Rhodes, and it's like, or I was talking to Tully Blanchard, and they're like, what, like this is like, oh, we work with Christian Cage, like
he's there now as well.
You know? Like it's you know, and I think that's, like you were saying, like there's something about AEW Dynamite that's just different, and I think most of it is just like, we're still people that are trying to, obviously we're building this company, we're building, you know, still kind of from the ground up. AEW is still very young, so we want to make sure.
2 years old.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we're putting out the best shows, and these are all, the majority of the roster are all guys that have sacrificed on the indies for nothing, you know, for years.
Yeah, like
so
I
now
remember
it's like,
watching
man,
Sammy Guevara vlog about going. It's like one of his earliest vlogs about like going to a show, and there was like very visible black mold on the canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, so like a lot of us don't forget those days, you know, and if people need reminding, like, well, you know, it's like, hey man, like, why are you complaining about this? You know, don't you remember a couple of years ago when you're starving and wrestling in shitty buildings? Like, you know, so we never, like, nobody takes what we have here at AEW for granted. you know, and everybody's willing to put everything out there to make this show successful. I mean, you can see it with Blood and Guts last week, #1 show on cable.
Yeah, that's
those
nuts.
guys sacrificed a lot and put on an insane match, and it paid off. And you know, hopefully people keep enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Christian Cage there as well, and I think as a fan, it kind of winds me up because I see a lot of people being like, "Oh, he's Edge's second, he's Edge's partner, he was never that good," and now I just know in AEW that he's gonna, like, for me as a fan, I'll be vindicated for all those people that I know who are like wrestling fans, like, "Oh, he's not that good," just for me to be like, watch this.
Yeah,
you can just tell like the level of freedom when you compare it to other places.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to Frank Kazarian after his match with Christian Cage, and I was like, "Oh man, dude, that was so." He's like, "I can't believe he hasn't wrestled a singles match in 7 years." He's like, he's as good, if not better, than he was
because
last time we wrestled him in TNA.
That day, I watched like a normal one-on-one match they had on TNA back in like 2006, and then I watched, you know, the ladder match they had where they were like, it was for like a contract, but the contract was on a clipboard, and the sheet of paper fell out the clipboard and landed on the canvas. So they were actually in the most, you know, 2007 TNA fashion fighting over an empty clipboard. But I watched both of them that day, and then I watched, you know, them that night. And as you said, Christian hadn't wrestled a singles match in 7 years, and I was like, that's the best of the three.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, I can't imagine being that good, but that's the benefit of having guys like Christian here, is because there's all these guys that don't have these years of experience working on wrestling on television. So his knowledge alone is just invaluable, you know, to all of us.
Another question as well about like the young guys there. Obviously, you know, a lot of indie guys are brought in for Dark and now Dark Elevation. Are there any ones that are like standing out to you that you think are going to be, you know, big names down the line? Because for me, I've just got my eyes on Hook, and I don't know why. I know he's not had a match yet, but Hook might be my favorite wrestler in the world. I don't know why.
He could be, you know. I'm very excited to see when he does step in the ring. I'm biased here. I do love Bear Country.
Oh, Bear Country, great.
I'm so glad that those guys are here, and I had a feeling that it wouldn't be long, and I knew like that. I had a feeling that they would end up here. I knew all they needed was a shot, and once I found out that their first match here they were going to be wrestling Stu and Uno, I was like, oh boy, like these boys are good. Like, and they put on a killer match, and it's like, yep, you guys are coming back next week, you know? Yeah. And they've just been tearing it up ever since. So I knew that those guys would be good. Also, guys, and not just because they're my, you know, not just because he's my friend, but VSK has had a couple good showings on Dark.
His match with El Phantasmo on Impact was really good as well.
On Impact, yeah. He's been all over the place lately. Yeah. So
I seen his tweet where I think he was on Dark last week, Impact last week, and he's on Elevation this week, and he photoshopped his head onto the Rick Rude on Nitro.
Rick Rude, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of good people on Dark, and it's, you know, yeah, there are a lot of matches, yeah, there are long shows, but Tony's been kind of single-handedly keeping indie wrestlers and working throughout this whole pandemic.
Because I think it was like Sugar Dunkerton on Talk is Jericho going over the Pineapple Pete stuff. He talked about it, and like someone got in touch and they were like, "What's your usual rate?" And he was all, "Oh, that's for one match." And Tony was like, "Okay, there's 4 times that." And he was all, "Did you misread it?" And he goes, "No, but there's no shows, so there you go."
Yeah,
which is crazy. A couple more questions before I let you go. Yeah, so obviously we mentioned Impact. So you got the Impact sort of working relationship, we sort of blossoming, same with New Japan, and obviously you guys are very welcome into indie wrestlers. Are there any teams out there that you, or just singles guys that you would like to mix it up with? Because I would love to see an Aussie Open rematch on Dynamite. That's
I
just
would love to wrestle Aussie Open again. I love that match.
It makes me so sad that they're in Australia. And Australia's like fully open and they're doing lots of shows. And yeah, I've been watching them all. I've been buying the PWA shows just because of them and Charlie Evans. But like, they start at like 10 a.m. here, and I'm like, sometimes I'm like doing college work, and I'm like half of them just watching an Aussie Open match. But there, and that's the thing as well. Dunkey didn't wrestle for like a year and a half because he tore his ACL at PWG, and he just came back as good, which was nuts.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I saw that they were both back, so I'm glad he healed up. Yeah, I love wrestling those guys, and I would love to wrestle them again. Kyle's very deceivingly big.
Oh, yeah, we met them at a show I met them at a show in Belfast, and me and my flatmate. And I'd been watching their stuff, and I was like, yeah, I know, big Mark Davis, he's huge. And then I just looked over and I was like, okay, what's going on
here? Yeah. I walked by, I was like, damn, you're a tall one. All right. Yeah, so I'd love to do Aussie Open again. God, who... I know they're kind of here, but I'd love to wrestle Gallows and Anderson in a straight-up tag team match.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
I need more Silver squaring up the Gallows. I need more of it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't not do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
A team I've really been enjoying lately because it's... So, the Motor City Machine Guns are my favourite tag team of all time. Alex Shelley's my favourite wrestler of all time.
They're...
But obviously, because Alex Shelley works in physical therapy and he's doing all that, he's not been going to the Impact tapings until he's fully vaccinated. Yeah. So they've just put Sabin with James Storm, and they've been great. It's been really weird, but they've just got, I don't know. I hope when Shelley comes back, they just like run as like a 3-man unit, just for the like the shits and giggles of it, because Sabin and Storm have been great.
Yeah, I'd love to wrestle Brian Myers in the singles, whether it's AEW or Impact. I feel like he's kind of like hit another level once he's like an Impact lately.
Yeah, he's been killing since he got there.
Yeah. So I'd love to do a singles match with them there. And yeah, there's just so much good talent out there. I mean, and then you have like your, top guys like your Jay Whites, Ibushi's, Ospreay, like all those guys are just so good. So, I don't know where any of these relationships with companies will go, but I'm very excited. And I think fans are excited too.
Oh, yeah,
because it keeps a lot of possibilities open. I mean, tonight it's Moxley and Yuji Nagata.
Yeah, like that's so nuts. Because that's the thing as well. Like, not a lot has happened yet, but it's only been in the works. November? Kenny won the title, or December. Kenny won the title, and that was when
December,
and that was when he first went to Impact. So it's not even been half a year.
Yeah,
and there's not been, I think there will hopefully, there'll be more things down the line. But a lot of people are like hating on it, but it's still like really early days when you think about it. And
and it's still, you just never know what's gonna happen, And I feel like that's such a cool feeling, and a feeling that's been missed in wrestling.
Because that's the thing as well, like with AEW, sometimes things are not predictable, but the right thing happens and everyone's talking about it, but it still happens because it's the right thing to do. Whereas, occasionally WWE will just keep the title on someone for 6 months too long because they were like, oh, you thought they were going to lose it when they should have lost it. And I think the surprises in AEW are always great, and the predictable stuff in AEW is always the right call.
Yeah, sometimes it's not bad to be predictable.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as the story's good and it's done right, like,
Yeah, I mean, you look at all the stuff with Mox going up to beat Jericho, that all the beats of that went, sort of as everyone would have guessed, and that was amazing. Yeah,
it's still, perfectly executed.
Yeah.
And the right call to be made.
Yeah. And I guess one final question before I let you go. Who is more nuts? Because I hear all the stories, and just from what I've heard, they're just always on, always nuts. -1 or Tony Khan?
Well, Tony's never beat the shit out of me with a kendo stick. So, at least not yet. But yeah, so -1, he's calmed down. a bit, like just because like now he's more comfortable with everybody, and like these are kind of just his natural his surroundings now.
Because when I was talking to Remsburg about him, I was like, I hear these stories, and like it's not that I think they're not real. You know, sometimes like, oh, is there like a little bit maybe like embellishment here or whatever? And then I went on someone's like Instagram story, and he just had Marco stunting a crossface, and I was like, oh, everything I've ever heard is true.
Yeah, he's man, like all of us love having him around. Yeah, you know, and there's nothing. And you can just see like, but he is so smart already. You know, like we've done a couple like promos with him.
Oh, he's great.
He'll just be like, guys, I have an idea. We're just like, dude, you're 9. Like, come on. But then he says it, and we're like, oh wow, that's actually pretty good. Oh, okay.
Was it Ty's women's titles match that he like walked out of the ring for, and you can just like see just how buzzing he is to like be in a wrestling ring and be on TV. Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah, he's very smart, like for a 9-year-old, like, and comfortable in front of a crowd. Like, I would be terrified. Oh yeah, as much as I loved wrestling, like you put me in front of a crowd, like at 9 years old, I would have probably just started crying.
Like, you know, you kind of have to like assume that for you guys, it was sort of like, you know, a gradual build from, you know, wrestling and you know, places like maybe like 50, 100 people. And then the shows get progressively bigger. And then, you know, I mean, your first match on Dynamite, you know, it was only 90 seconds, but you were there, you got used to it before.
Yeah.
And he just got out there, picked up a mic and just started running people down.
Yeah, but like, great. It was great. Entertaining. Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, little Brody's man. He's the best, and it'll be interesting to see kind of where, you know, if he decides to continue to wrestle. Like, how, you know, it'll be cool to see though.
Definitely. Well,
but I know he's enjoying it.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you can tell.
To me, that's all that matters.
And that's the thing. I mean, like I've said a bunch of times here, a big reason I watch AEW is because it makes me happy, because I just see all these wrestlers being so happy, and you can see by him, like I said, when he walked Ty to the ring, you can just tell that he's really happy to be there. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for coming on, Alex.
No problem, man. I appreciate it.
Give you the floor to plug away.
Yeah, just Twitter, Instagram, at YT Alex Reynolds. And tune into AEW Dynamite every Wednesday and Being the Elite every Monday.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, man.